And y'all gotta say, yo, friends, this is Lauren of Lauren Learns Korean, and today I just wanted to share with you a quick story. And forgive me if things get random. So, in the very first video that I ever uploaded to this channel, I basically did like an overview of how I come to really love Korean culture and entertainment, and how it started from when I was a kid at my church that I grew up in. So I'm kind of want to elaborate on that a little bit, just because I feel compelled to, you know what I mean? So before I get to that though, let me just say, now I might be, slow to the game, so to speak, but I have recently discovered Epic High. And if you all are even farther behind than I am, Epic High is a Korean rap trio. Well, it's two rappers and a DJ. And one of the members of the group, Tableau, I knew who that was because I've heard him featured on other artists' songs. But recently, well, Friday actually, this past Friday on the 18th, they released an album, or like a collector's edition of an album, and it's like really good. So one song that they have on there is called Michelin Cipher, and it's fire. And at the end, that's the part that gets me going. I just gotta like dance. And they basically say in Korean, delicious, or it's good, because they're like talking about, you're kind of using like symbolism with like cooking and whatnot in terms of how fly they are. So at the end they go mashita, 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 mashita. It's hot. But anyway, back to the subject at hand. I was thinking about this yesterday and then today. Um, how, like, it's interesting. Let me see. Let me try to put it this way. So it's interesting how things come around or come full circle, and when you really sit and think about where it began, uh, it blows your mind. So, as I mentioned in the first video that I had ever uploaded on this channel, um, there was a Korean woman that went to the church that I grew up in back in the 90s, years ago. And I had said it was an interracial couple, so it was a Korean woman and a white man, Mr. and Mrs. Clark. And they went to our church for years, like a very long time. And when I was sitting back and thinking about this and how all this has gotten started, because I consider, knowing this lady as the start of it all, I just didn't realize it yet because I was a kid. So when I go back and think about her, things that I remember the most about her was that she was very sweet. She was a very nice lady. She had a very, very heavy Korean accent. And that was pretty much maybe the first time that maybe even my sister, my younger sister, we ever, um, got to really know an Asian person, I guess, because where I'm from, that's not common. And the church that I grew up in was a black church. And so to have her and her husband, who was also not black, in a all black church basically was interesting, when I sit and think about it. And so I remember, she would always say hi. She would always call us baby. And I mean, I think she knew our names. I don't know, but she would always call us baby. It didn't matter. Um, and she was very, very nice, very kind. She would always talk to you. Um, and as I shared in my first video, another thing that I remember a lot was the one instance where my mom was talking to her, and I remember I was standing there next to my mom for some reason, and I look down and I see her Bible, and it's a Korean Bible, and it was in all Korean. But at the time, I didn't understand. I didn't know that that's what it was. I just knew it wasn't English, because I think at this point I was probably maybe 12 when I saw that. And I just know that I thought it was cool. I was like, oh, it's a Bible in a different language that I can't read. But I was a kid, so I just kind of looked at it and just kind of like, okay. And didn't think much of it really. And then, as I also mentioned, when another memory is that believe this is just me trying to put the pieces together. Um, we were invited to a Korean church, and one Sunday we went to this Korean church, and I remember I sat there in the service, not understanding a word of it because it was all in Korean. And I remember I grabbed a Bible out of the pew and I open it up and I look at it and I just kind of like stare at it for, I don't know, maybe a few minutes. Because it wasn't too long after me seeing, her Bible. It's probably within the same year or so, something like that. But I remember I open it up and I look at it and it's a Korean Bible, so it's all in Korean, and I just kind of stare at it and then I close it and put it away. Not thinking much of it. Um, so, just little things like that are fascinating when you sit and think about it, because I don't know, maybe this is just me, but like, I like to go back and think about, well, how did I come to fill in the blank here? And it was one of those instances when I shot the first video, um, because I was like, well, what am I going to do a video on? I'm like, well, how about, the origins of how I came to be involved in this? And that's where it started, when I really thought about it, because prior to just taking the plunge and creating this channel, uh, I had come to this realization that that's where all of this started, really. And then, it was like a bamboo seed. Like, you hear about the bamboo plant story where you plant it, and after 7 or 8 years, during that period, you don't see any growth or you don't see anything happening, and then all of a sudden, bam, there's the bamboo plant. Well, that's how I compare that to this. So I would say that was definitely the start of it all. And I never really thought about or appreciated it, I guess, because I mean, like I said, I was a kid, so kids don't think about stuff like that, or at least I didn't. But the fact that the seed was planted, and as I go back and think about my whole life up until this point, to where a Korean something has been sprinkled throughout my life in some kind of way, and it started as a kid at church, blows my mind. And she loved the Lord. Um, and I'm not teasing her, but like I said, I was a kid, so I didn't know any better. And of course, my sister and I did get scolded for this. But when we would at the end of service at church, we would come up to the altar, or the pulpit, in front of the pulpit, and we would all stand in a circle and hold hands while the pastor did a final, prayer before service was over. And so there have been a couple times where I would hold her hand, or she would be in the vicinity, and the pastor would be praying. We all have our heads down, and all of a sudden you hear, "Amen, Amen, Amen, Amen." She was like fully invested. I was like, that's kind of cool. Like when I think about it, and as a goofy kid, my sister, I said her name, my sister and I would kind of giggle about it because, that was, we're just very goofy and silly. So we weren't trying to make fun of her or anything like that. But, this was a different thing for us back then. We just didn't have very many encounters with other people like that, with people from different countries and stuff. So, that's another pleasant memory. But she was always very into prayer, and just a very, very sweet lady, and I don't know what's going on with her now. I don't, because this was years and years and years ago. I barely remember. I don't even remember the last time I actually saw her. Probably maybe when I was in high school, maybe early college years, maybe, but I'm not sure. And the last that I heard about her, she was sick, I think, and this was probably at least, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. So I don't know how she's doing or anything like that. So fortunately, I've lost contact with this lady and her husband, but I do have very fond memories of her being at church, and being able to see her every day, and hear, or not every day, but every week, see her every every Sunday. And I think she and her husband came to Bible study also. So every Thursday and Sunday, just seeing her there and hearing her say amen and, and all this, because she was always very involved in service. Um, and I've been meaning to ask my sister if she remembers any of that stuff. Because I don't know if I would say it was rare, but it wasn't common, especially for like a black church. Like, I grew up in a typical black church. Like, it was a non-denominational black church, but it was basically kind of like a Baptist black church. And if you're black, you know what I'm talking about. Or if you've ever been to a black Baptist church, you know what I'm talking about. So just the fact that it was all black people and then Korean lady and white guy. And I think at one point there was a Hispanic woman that came there too. I think she was Hispanic. I'm not sure. She may have been biracial, but I don't know. But the fact that they were at our church and they came to our church for a long time, like I think it probably over a decade, they were there, was pretty cool now that I think about it. But just being introduced to Korean culture and the language and things like that all the way back then, and didn't realize it. It was like the seed was planted and it was tucked away until way, way, way later when I was in college. But, that's a whole nother story. But I just wanted to share that with you all because it's something that I am very, very grateful for, actually, because I don't know how many people, at least in my circle, got to ever experience a Korean church back in the 90s as a black kid. I don't know how often that happens. Or to have a Korean lady at your church as a member of your church that was basically all black. It's pretty crazy. So I appreciate you all for hanging out with me today. And I will catch you all in the next one. I'll see y'all later. 안녕히 계세요.